Welcome back to the deep dive. Our mission here is to take the sources you bring to the table and give you that ultimate shortcut to becoming really well-informed.
But today we're doing something, well, a little different.
Yeah, we are. We're not diving into market strategies or, political data. Not this time.
No. Today we're performing a deep dive into the very craft of communication itself.
Exactly. We're looking at how intense, abstract human experience, things like love, longing, spiritual growth, how that gets translated into text that's, well, powerful and unforgettable.
Right. So our mission for you today is a really deep exploration of emotional resonance, of vivid imagery, and what we're calling purposeful language. We're not just dissecting what the author says.
Not at all.
We're digging into the meticulous literary and rhythmic techniques he uses to make you, the listener, really feel the content, in your bones.
And the source material for all this is a book titled Space Between the Crescent Shadows by Andrey Psyche. And it's interesting because the author himself, he frames it not as a typical book.
He calls it one lover's account, which immediately tells you what you're in for. It's a collection of deeply personal, spiritual, and I'd say very lyrical prose poetry, maybe even song lyrics.
That kind of source material, it really demands we shift our whole analytical lens, doesn't it?
It does. We're looking at emotional architecture, rhetorical precision, the intentional use of, figurative language. For you, the learner, our goal is to really understand how this author guides us through his own personal journey.
A journey of love, self-discovery, and artistic evolution. And he does it by controlling every single element of the language and sound.
And before you even get to the first page of poetry, the dedication just lays it all out. It sets the entire tone.
It really is striking. He thanks his loved ones, which is standard, but the focus on his love, that feels like a declaration of intent.
It's a foundational promise for the whole text. He thanks her, and I'm quoting here, for inspiring me to become the person that I am today.
And he goes on.
He does. Each day, I find myself reaching and striving for more so that I could be the man I know you deserve to have in your life. I mean, that's not passive adoration.
No, that's active. It's a declaration that this love is the catalyst. It's the reason for this monumental self-improvement project he's undertaking.
It completely sets the stage for the intense longing and the spiritual struggle, the self-sculpting that you feel in every single line that follows.
Right. So the text immediately communicates that this journey is driven by this profound, really intense longing. Let's start there. Let's analyze the techniques he uses to make that longing feel tangible. Okay, so let's unpack this. We're starting with how the author builds this universe of deep, almost immutable connection.
And he often uses very concrete, sometimes even hyperbolic imagery to make these abstract emotions feel, tangible.
This is the masterclass in showing versus telling that we're always talking about.
It really is. And he starts building this universe immediately, page 1, with this complex chain of cause and effect that you could almost call the butterfly effect of connection.
The butterfly effect, yeah. That's a good way to put it. It sets the tone for a love that's so powerful it seems to change the laws of physics.
The language is so delicate, but at the same time, it's sweeping. He starts with these really subtle movements that somehow traverse huge distances.
The gust that butterfly's wings must create to thrust itself an inch or two can send a particle of dew to tumble downwards. That's the microscale of it right there.
It is, but then almost immediately he ramps up the sensory input and the scale of the effect. He goes from the visual to the audible, introducing sound as this force of destiny.
This is the part about the ant, right?
Exactly. The sound an ant makes when he screams can tremble a vibrant beetle's wings enough so that when it takes off, it veers off to one side so much that when it lands, your shoulder is the only place that it can reach, sharing its colors.
What's so fascinating about that purposeful language, is the incredible shift in scale. A butterfly's wing moves a dewdrop. That's a local event.
Right.
But an ant screaming, a sound so tiny, it's almost mythical, that causes a beetle to change its entire flight path across, oceans?
Yeah.
Continents, maybe, just to land on her shoulder?
He's taking this esoteric idea of destiny and giving it physical, audible, and visible proof. The ant's scream, the beetle's altered path. It's hyperbole, of course.
Of course.
But it's used so intentionally to convey the sheer magnitude of his devotion. It's a rhetorical technique. It's designed to assure her, and you the reader, that even the slightest intent has these cosmic consequences that lead directly to their union.
And that idea, that subtle, profound intent across a vast distance, that's exactly how he wraps up that first thought.
Yeah.
An ocean might be separating them, but he tells her, I have all that I need to be right next to you.
Because the subtle intent, the prayer whispered to a bug, the universe shifting by an inch, it guarantees his presence is, and this is his wording, irrefutable, immutably bring just a bit of comfort in ungodly hours.
That phrase, irrefutable, immutably. That's not just passive description, is it?
No, it's crucial, purposeful language. It establishes their connection as a constant, an unbreakable physical law of their own shared universe. It's a rhetorical anchor, he's saying. I don't even need to try to be there. The universe itself conspires to place me there.
But if the connection is immutable destiny, the experience of that longing is, well, it's physical and it's painful. We go from these subtle micro events to this visceral, honestly shocking imagery of his heart.
His externalized heartbeat, yeah. He uses such immediate, almost painful imagery to describe the intensity of his love and desire. He just bypasses all the typical romantic metaphors.
You go straight to the visceral.
Straight to it. The heart is described as laying open in my hands, pulsating, beating, longing, yearning. This isn't just a metaphor for vulnerability.
No, it feels like an externalized reality of his deepest self.
And he pushes that paradox even further. The speaker doesn't want the pain to stop. He actually wants it to intensify.
The pain won't stop, nor do I just want it to kick up a notch.
Yeah.
That's such raw, immediate imagery. It's designed for maximum emotional resonance. It forces you to recognize that, for him, intensity is better than peace, at least at this point.
That intentional desire for pain is key. And it gets even more intense. He describes his heart throbbing with needle pain, penetrating through the skin, out the rib cage, dwells again.
I mean, think about that visual. It's astonishing. The heart has literally fled the safety of the rib cage. It's exposed to the world, just throbbing in his own hand.
It's an incredible visual representation of vulnerability and this intense, immediate reality he's living in.
And yet this extreme pain and exposure is paired with this profound closeness.
Pain and pleasure felt in unison, beating, rhythmically beating still. This is where the core paradox of the entire text starts to form.
That the physical pain of longing is somehow also the ultimate pleasure of feeling everything so intensely.
Exactly. The heart wants to be cuddled up as close as atom separation inconceivable. The writer's craft here is forcing you, the reader, to experience the immediacy of his internal state. By making the abstract concept of longing physically painful, visible, and immediate, he achieves maximum emotional resonance.
It's a demanding kind of writing. It really is. It demands you feel the open heart, the needle pain.
And the paradoxical pleasure that comes with that intensity.
I find that visceral imagery so demanding that the shifts in scale become, I don't know, almost a relief. The text frequently contrasts this high-stakes cosmic imagery with very simple domestic moments.
And that juxtaposition is a crucial technique. It keeps the whole emotional journey grounded. On one hand, you have the cosmic, these hyperbolic declarations of eternal destiny.
Forever yours, my name.
Right. Or the grand plans. Our souls to grow and intertwine, our hearts to merge and love turn blind, for all our planets to align. This is love as a gravitational force. Love is destiny.
But then you get this sudden, sensual, and very grounded domestic simplicity. He's walking out the door, leaving his beloved a snuggly warm burrito in our bed.
The contrast is immense, isn't it? Between aligning planets and being a snuggly warm burrito.
It's jarring. It's almost whiplash-inducing.
Right.
Do you think that juxtaposition is meant to be humorous? Or does it, risk undercutting the gravity of all the spiritual claims?
I would argue it actually reinforces the gravity by making it relatable.
Yeah.
The risk is worth the reward. He's applying a classic rhetorical technique, connecting the sublime with the tangible.
Okay.
The love is powerful enough to manipulate cosmic destiny, sure, but the tangible proof of that love is making sure your partner is safe, warm, and comfortable in the morning.
It makes the incredible achievable. It roots this grand spiritual quest in everyday devotion. Like bringing back flowers, the ones I grew myself on the driveway.
Exactly. It's a purposeful reminder that this grand, eternal love has to be lived through these minute, present acts of care.
And speaking of purposeful acts, let's talk about the skilled use of rhythm and form. It's not just the vivid descriptions, it's the intentional sound and cadence of the language itself that creates this feeling of emotional persistence.
A key component of the craft we're analyzing.
And the recurring 6-word rhythmic device is a prime example of this. It feels like a chant, a rhythm of continuous effort.
Reanimate, reacclimate, retaliate, respond, remember, reignite.
Let's just break down the mechanics there for a second. The sound of those words
The repeating hard R sounds.
and the consistent four-syllable cadence in words like reacclimate and reignite, it acts like a drum beat. It's a military cadence, a mantra of continuous action. The alliteration and assonance, they force a kind of momentum.
It's not passive hope, is it? It's active, rhythmic work. This technique is designed to create a sense of cyclical, persistent, almost ritualistic devotion. It shows he's actively working to maintain the connection, not just waiting for destiny. And that technique evolves. Later in the text, that six-word phrase shifts to return, recharge, and re-embrace. The rhythm is still there, but the action has changed.
That signals an achieved state of unity. The battle is over for a moment, and the action shifts to maintenance, to enjoyment.
The consistent form, but the evolving content. It mirrors the growth journey itself.
Okay, finally in this section on craft, we have to talk about the lyrical intrusion of foreign language phrases. These moments where the English text is suddenly pierced by Russian or French.
These are not random choices. They signal a highly controlled, heightened, emotional, or spiritual vulnerability that English alone couldn't quite convey.
It's a brilliant device. Using another language creates this deliberate barrier, forcing you to pause and process the shift. On page 46, when he's describing his inability to stop searching, the Russian lines appear.
The Foria Alo, Pete, which translates roughly to opening my eyes. I don't know where I am. Only a stranger stands here.
Let's just analyze the texture of that. The Russian sounds harsher, with the hard consonants, the sharp syllables. The feeling is one of accusation, of existential crisis.
The sudden linguistic barrier throws the reader off balance, and that reflects the speaker's own confusion. His acute sense of being a stranger in an unknown world, it externalizes this deep spiritual isolation.
Contrast that texture with the French line that shows up later. It's a whispered phrase of comfort in an intimate moment.
Mon petit lapin, vous avez chuchoté dans mon oreille. Ne t'inquiète pas, après moi tu seras en terre. My little rabbit, you whispered in my ear, don't worry, after me you will be whole.
The language there is just. It's flowing, it's soft, intimate. The texture is completely different.
The shift from that harsh, existential loneliness expressed in Russian to the soft, intimate promise of completion in French. It just adds immense dimension and emotional weight.
So these linguistic intrusions are intentional acts of craft. They mark moments where English poetry just couldn't hold the weight of the raw, culturally specific emotion he's trying to express.
It's the author using every tool available to him, every single tonal variation, to communicate a complete emotional spectrum, from total alienation to intimate comfort. What's so fascinating here is that the text just refuses to settle for simple romantic declarations. It immediately starts grappling with the complexity of the inner landscape.
Right. It dives straight into independence, manipulation, self-acceptance. This is the thorough knowledge that our listener craves. It's that aha moment where you realize this is a philosophical treatise on how to be in love, not just how to fall in love.
And he provides a surprisingly detailed critique of traditional, maybe even manipulative romantic pursuit. He confesses to having used snake ways in the past.
Which is such a purposeful, negative, self-flagellating image. A snake.
He describes himself as having learned the ways of snake before me and used them freely. End of story. This self-acknowledgement of past emotional manipulation is so revealing.
But the central tension is his absolute commitment to change, to stop using them, or perhaps they hate me, to taint a perfect little seed.
The resolve is so strong. No flattery, no urging, no nagging, no demands, just my heart waiting for the taking. He decides to allow the world to bring her to his door rather than stooping to manipulation again.
This commitment to non-coercion, that's the new ethical standard for his love.
But I find a philosophical paradox here. If we go back to the first section, the connection was irrefutable, immutably. It suggested fate, destiny.
So how can he now say, I cannot force your hand one bit, while also describing a connection that is fated? Doesn't the idea of destiny kind of cancel out free will?
That is the essential and, I think, brilliant tension of the text. The author seems to be saying that destiny ensures the opportunity for connection.
Right.
The universe will bring the beetle to the shoulder, but destiny does not dictate the terms of that connection.
So the beloved still has to choose the manner of entry. She has to walk through the door herself.
Precisely. He states it explicitly. It must be your exercise of freedom to dive in flames of scorching heat. True love, in this text, is only validated by the voluntary choice to enter the relationship, fully aware of the intensity, the emotional, scorching heat that's waiting.
So the connection is faded, but the acceptance of the terms, the heat, the honesty, the pain that has to be freely chosen.
Any bond built on anything less than free will is inherently flawed in his view.
This grounding philosophy is then immediately reinforced by this powerful declaration of self-completeness as a prerequisite for the relationship.
And this challenge is probably the most entrenched trope of traditional romance. The idea of two halves making a whole.
Absolutely. The declaration is unequivocal. It's demanding. I'll choose to make myself complete. You do the same, and then we'll meet.
And then the crucial part. You will not find your missing piece. You have to mold it through blazing heat.
Let's spend a moment on the philosophical implications of that. He's saying, I will not be your missing piece, and you will not be mine. That idea of molding it through blazing heat, it suggests a deliberate, painful, active process of self-sculpture. Why is that so vital?
The author suggests that if you enter a relationship looking for a missing piece, you're just creating codependency, vulnerability, instability. The blazing heat is the transformative work each person has to do alone to become internally whole.
It's the struggle, the pain, the self-acceptance.
It redefines strength. You have to endure the fire on your own so that when you finally come to the union, you're not looking for a savior, you're simply choosing a companion.
So that atomic closeness he yearns for, that separation inconceivable, is only possible after self-mastery. Only two completed souls can truly merge without just collapsing into one another.
If you try to merge two incomplete pieces, you get a fragile, asymmetrical object. But if you merge two objects that have been forged and molded whole by fire, you get something unbreakable. The purposeful language of molding and blazing heat conveys the immense effort required before the love can even begin.
This grounded present moment philosophy, it extends into the promises he's willing, and maybe more importantly, unwilling to make.
Yes, we need to look closely at the promises he refuses to uphold. He's generous with tangible, immediate support. He promises his heart, his strength, protection, the nurture you've craved for all your life. These are all things he controls in the present moment.
But the refusal is what's so insightful. He refuses to promise tomorrow or the future. He won't engage in the typical future-based fairy tale. And why?
Because, as he says, 'cause all we've got is this moment.
It grounds the intense emotion in this radical appreciation for the present. The refusal to promise the future is an act of ethical grounding.
It acknowledges the uncontrollable nature of time and external events. He's not selling a lie. He's offering a demanding, immediate, and realistic devotion. His love might be eternal, but his promise is only for right now.
And that reality includes struggle, which brings us to the price of peace. The text really examines the difficulty of finding peace in isolation.
And the internal battle against what he calls worms inside their mind, and how gossip feeds the plagues of locusts.
Such vivid, disturbing images. They're designed to illustrate the decay and internal rot that happens when you listen to external noise or that internal negative chatter.
The worms are self-doubt. The locusts are that corrosive external judgment. He uses this imagery to show that internal peace isn't automatic. It's something you fight for by rejecting these intrusive negative forces.
The path to peace, though, seems to be defined by accepting a lack of ultimate control. There's this profound imagery of surrender on page 53. This is the beautiful moment of self-acceptance.
The speaker accepts that one is merely a cork in the ocean bobbing up and down. The metaphor of the cork is perfect.
Why do you say that?
Because it's small, it's insignificant in its size, yet it's completely buoyant. It's incapable of being submerged for long. The only way to win against the waves of the seas is to surrender to them, to let go of your commotion.
So this surrender is the ultimate act of self-mastery. He's saying, stop fighting the waves and realize that your experience is divine simply because it's happening.
Float up, sink down, and feel just how divine your whole experience.
Peace, then, is the acceptance of one's insignificance within the immense, beautiful flow of life, rather than the futile attempt to control the water. So if we connect this to the bigger picture, the text often uses the narrative of romantic longing and personal struggle as a vehicle for discussing personal evolution, self-help, and even societal responsibility.
And the language here is intensely purposeful. It's often using these battle-scarred metaphors.
This is where that showing versus telling idea reaches a philosophical peak. He isn't just telling us to be happy. He's describing the painful, necessary process of confronting your own darkness. Right. The text uses the imagery of embracing the shadow of our own disguise. This is a direct engagement with the deep psychological concept of the shadow self.
The repressed, the negative, the unknown aspects of your personality. And the fear only persists as long as you run from it. The speaker advises, don't run, don't hide, don't even blink. Look dead into its eyes and sing your song.
So the only way to true freedom, according to the text, is acknowledgement. Only acknowledgement will dissipate the fear.
It's a painful journey of acceptance, and it's illustrated so powerfully by the imagery of scars. Every scar you see upon me once was festered and inflamed. Dissolve the blame game.
The willingness to drop the blame game, that refusal to assign fault externally, that's the start of the spiritual transformation.
And this internal struggle transforms the speaker. It takes him from one identity to another. The text traces this evolution from the boy who's now been weathered by battle, pain, and money, to the one who is awakened from a living nightmare to find a happy ever after.
The boy died, broken by the world, so the man could be reborn, forged by his own choices. It's a classic death and rebirth cycle, but it's articulated through this very specific, battle-worn language.
And what defines this new man is what he calls the warrior's grace. The text doesn't shy away from hardship at all. It glorifies enduring it.
The strength is found in the scars and scratches, and the warrior's hidden grace.
It's an almost defiant celebration of persistence and resilience. The strength required is that to wage a war you couldn't win. To get beat up, to scream and rattle, and still stand tall must be a dream.
So the purpose of the fight isn't the victory, because sometimes the war is unwinnable.
Exactly. The purpose is the sheer strength that's forged in the process of fighting anyway.
This connects directly back to that idea of the blazing heat. The speaker knows the strength he's seeking is forged through fire, and the only real necessity is having the will to thrive.
The willingness to be broken is the prerequisite for becoming stronger than before. The core idea is that character is built in the crucible of resistance, not in comfort.
Now, this focus on self-accountability and the necessity of struggle, it suddenly expands radically in the Crescent section. The tone shifts so abruptly from this intense personal longing to urgent societal critique.
We need to analyze that transition because it connects the internal battle to external responsibility. This philosophical pivot is crucial. The text seems to imply that you cannot achieve full self-mastery while remaining ignorant or complacent about the world around you.
The struggle for internal truth must be mirrored by a demand for external accountability.
And the purposeful language here is jarringly direct. The focus pivots quickly to political correctness, willful ignorance, tangible global issues.
Glaciers melt and nature cries. Smog fills valleys. It becomes a philosophical treatise on why individual inaction matters.
It is a profound rhetorical attack on modern denial and complicity. The language is powerful, directly criticizing those who deny responsibility by saying, "I didn't do it, I swear on God," while refusing to fight for what is their own.
The author is dismantling that comfortable modern detachment, the "I simply throw all yours away" mentality.
He's criticizing the idea of performative ethics, where you claim innocence while actively refusing to do the messy, difficult work of protection or change. If you refuse to fight for the climate or the environment or the future,
then you are as guilty as those who caused the damage.
and this is the ultimate connection back to the personal journey. The internal struggle mirrors the external. You can't find inner peace while ignoring the collapsing world outside, and you can't demand change outside if you refuse to fight for what is truly your own.
Your inner landscape, your freedom, your accountability.
Which culminates in what has to be the text's most radical piece of advice. To build the world anew, the speaker suggests, one must bite the hand that feeds you. Burn all the bridges to turn your back on everything and build the world anew.
Wow.
It's a declaration of complete self-determination, a revolution, really. It's a refusal to participate in any system, internal or external, that compromises your truth or prevents your growth. You have to destroy the comfortable dependencies, the hand that feeds you, to find the strength to build something genuine on your own foundation.
The purposeful language in this section, the imagery of hellfire burns, and the critique of the "I didn't do it" defense, it makes the argument urgent. It forces you to confront your own complicity, both in your personal life and in the broader social sphere. Here's where it gets really interesting for me. We've analyzed the complexity of this emotional world, the vivid imagery, the philosophy of fire and freedom, and now we get to look at the creator, Andrey Psyche.
And see how his real-life journey maps directly onto his artistic philosophy and craft.
His trajectory, which is detailed in the About the Author section, it's the perfect real-world illustration of the transformation described in the poetry.
Andrey Pavlenko, born in Russia, migrates to the U.S. and initially pursues a heavily scientific track.
He earned a BS in biology from the University of Washington and was on the path to becoming an MD. He actually declined medical school offers.
Which is a huge decision, and it mirrors that refusal to follow a prescribed path that we saw in the poetry. He pivots into a custom manufacturing business instead.
And this unexpected shift, even though it was technical, it was the breakthrough. It was the moment he started applying that intense scientific rigor, the structure, the logic, the precise processes he learned in biology to a creative medium.
The source notes that applying these rigorous scientific learning techniques to program CNC machinery, quote, broke the seal on whatever was keeping his creative juices bottled up.
That is the key interdisciplinary synergy. The structure and logic of science, applied to mechanical precision, unlocked the freedom required for complex artistic expression.
The disciplined pursuit of truth in science translated into the structured pursuit of emotion in art.
This synthesis is so crucial for understanding the rhythmic precision we analyzed earlier. That recurring six-word rhythmic device, reanimate, reacclimate, that isn't just a happy accident.
No, it's an applied logic, a coded sequence, almost like a program or a biological pathway. The scientific mind provides the structure, the emotional mind provides the content.
Then his subsequent shift to painting involved, and this is another quote, complete loss of control. It reflects his inner work in meditation. He was flinging pigment onto surfaces, demanding an immediate response to chaos.
It's an artistic discipline that demands the very thing his poetry demands. Embracing imperfections, accepting flaws, and allowing truth to emerge through the absence of traditional control.
And this led him to his central philosophy on interdisciplinary art, which, for me, beautifully explains why his poetry is so skilled and multi-layered.
He believes art is art. Whether it's paint or music, they share the same fundamental processing that allow the artist to interchange the same techniques between disciplines, which at the same time reflect life itself.
That quote is the key to this whole deep dive. It means the juxtaposition we saw, cosmic destiny paired with a snugly warm burrito, that's a deliberate technique he likely borrowed from painting.
Like contrasting textures or colors to heighten the emotional impact of both elements.
Exactly. He credits his rapid growth in music and songwriting to understanding the abstract principles taught by his paintings, which confirms it. The rhythmic repetition, the jarring imagery, the cosmic domestic contrasts, these are not accidental poetic gestures. They are applied abstract techniques learned from one medium and intentionally translated into another.
And they reflect the structured growth necessary in life itself.
So the logic, learned through science, was applied to machinery, then translated into abstract painting principles, and finally synthesized into lyrical craft. It demonstrates how purposeful language and form are universally transferable tools for conveying the deepest truth.
And now he applies this synthesized understanding to his current role, teaching art and life lessons to youth. He sees this act of sculpting the mind as the highest form of creation he can achieve.
He states his core beliefs so clearly. There is nothing more creative in this world than sculpting the mind of future generations. And if we are to evolve as a society, the answer is and always will be in education.
He is teaching others the very tools of transformation that he used to write the poetry we just analyzed. The structured thought, the embrace of the shadow, the power of purposeful craft.
So we circle right back to the synthesis. The intense craft, the emotional resonance, the vivid imagery we've been analyzing, they are themselves lessons in growth.
The text concludes by stating, through art, we can learn much about the artist. Through the artists, we can learn much about ourselves. Though ourselves, we can learn much about the universe.
The purposeful language used in the poetry is a direct pathway to understanding individual struggle, cosmic reality, and the necessity of self-sculpture. The techniques he uses to write are the same techniques he advocates for living. What an incredible journey through the emotional and creative landscape of Andrey Psyche. We went from the delicate butterfly effect of connection all the way to the necessity of diving into the blazing heat alone.
And highlighted how purposeful language and this visceral imagery make abstract concepts like self-mastery and love feel so immediate, so urgent.
The entire text is a testament to the idea that personal transformation requires breaking molds, accepting imperfections, or, as he calls it, the beauty of perfection's faults.
And choosing to build momentum alone before a true, non-manipulative connection can thrive. It demands two whole people, forged through fire, who are capable of that atomic closeness precisely because they are not halves seeking completion.
So the ultimate takeaway for you, the learner, is the value of process over destination. The author states, the ending, something to be loathed. Persistence carries on.
So if the true purpose of life is the ongoing pursuit and process, the feeling, the fighting, the creation, then what are we afraid of losing by giving ourselves over fully to the blazing heat of the present moment?
We encourage you to consider that distinction between a peaceful destination and a fulfilling journey. If happiness is merely the spectacle of every day, then the power lies not in achieving some final goal.
But in the relentless, rhythmic, and intentional act of carrying on, think about the internal war you might be waging right now. Is your focus on stopping the fight or on finding the warrior's hidden grace within the struggle itself? The craft of life, just like the craft of poetry, requires constant, purposeful action.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive into the structure and sound of emotional expression. We'll see you next time.